Welcome to the Sober Life Rocks podcast. I'm your host, Margie Schaller, and I want to welcome you today and let you know you are not alone. You may have made the decision not to drink alcohol, or at the very least, at work-related events. But whether you've never been a drinker, are in recovery, made a health-related decision, we see you. In today's world, networking and socializing, celebrations, they all seem to happen over drinks, and the struggle can be real. But through this podcast, we're changing that narrative. We are here to create a community where individuals like you who choose not to drink or just drink less can find camaraderie, support, and practical advice. So let's get the conversation started. I am just so excited to introduce you to Madison Truscan. She is a multifaceted Dallas-based creative with a focus on concert photography, music journalism, and podcast hosting. Madison is wholeheartedly passionate about her sobriety and being authentic on the internet. Madison's adventurous life has been nothing short of wild, and she's ready to tell her story to the world. In fact, her Insta handle is Sober Girls Gone Wild. So let's get it started. Madison, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. What a lovely introduction. I am so honored to be here and very, very excited to share my story with you and with everyone listening at home.
Absolutely. I just love Sober Girls Gone Wild. I think that is just such a fantastic thing. But how did we get there? So I always like to ask people, like, tell me a little bit about your childhood. Like, what was it like growing up, and what part did alcohol play or not play for you as a child?
Yeah, great question. So I grew up in Seattle. I currently am based in Dallas, like you mentioned.
Oh,
So
that's where I live.
yes. Yeah. What part of Seattle are you in?
I'm actually east of Seattle in Duval.
Okay, so I grew up in Auburn, in a
Okay.
in a suburb, and then lived in West Seattle for a while. Moved to Dallas about 3 years ago. Um, was surrounded by family members who only drank very rarely on one side and drank quite heavily and excessively on the other. So, depending on whose house we were at for which holiday or which day we were celebrating which holiday, I saw a really healthy relationship and a really not so healthy relationship. But I never really thought too much into it as a child. I guess I thought that everyone's family was kind of like that, and some sides of people's families would party really hard, and then maybe they would drink a little bit too much, and somebody would accidentally say something or get a little angry, and then somebody's upset, and then there's this whole thing. But I was so young, I couldn't really grasp that alcohol was what was causing that. Then when I got older and realized that on that one side of the family, alcohol was the common theme, and when that was present, the issues were also present, started to make that connection. I was not someone who drank in high school. I've always had a really strong guilty conscience. And so the thought of like drinking underage totally freaked me out. I don't know if that's because I'm the oldest daughter or a Libra or they used to call me goody two shoes. I don't know.
Oh
But
my gosh.
I did not drink until I was 21. I maybe had like a half a glass of wine one time. And then I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I'm so drunk, even though I clearly was not. But I just, you freak yourself out and you're like, whoa, the room is spinning. And then it's like, no, you literally had 3 sips. You're fine. But
So
I
wait, so
didn't.
wait, let me just stop you there because I want to understand. I mean, were you surrounded by other people who were drinking underage?
Yes and no. When I was in my high school years, I was super involved with church, and like that was just really not talked about, not really happening. And then when I got out of high school, then a lot of my friends were older, and so they were drinking and we were having parties, and I was always like, oh, I don't want to get in trouble, so I would never drink.
Huh. I asked that because I'm just wondering, like, how did you feel about that, like being different?
I've always been different, and that freaked me out, but it also, I don't know. I feel like if I was different in the fact that I wasn't drinking, then maybe that would take away from the fact that I was different in other
Hmm.
things. Like
Okay.
I'm the only one covered in tattoos, or I'm the one that's got the super eclectic, eccentric style, or I'm, whatever it may be, it kind of, took away from that. But
Okay.
um
Okay, so you won, and then what?
and then I mean, at the end of the day, it was a little bit scary, like being surrounded by people who were drinking and partying a lot, especially because this was all happening during the pandemic.
Oh.
So, we're working from home, we're stuck at home. It's a lot of virtual happy hours, it's neighbors coming over to drink. And I was just freshly 21 at that point. So that's when I started to be like, oh, okay, I'm of age now. Let's do it.
Mm-hmm. And
And
so what was that like?
it was interesting. I never really had a proper experience going out freshly 21, drinking for the first time, not during the pandemic. So when I did go, like when we celebrated my 21st birthday, bars were not open. So we had to go to a restaurant, and they had a regulation where you had to order food. You couldn't just go and have a drink. You had to actually sit down and have a meal in order to order a drink. So in order to have my glass of champagne, I had to get a plate of food. I didn't get to just go to a bar and meet new people and mingle and play pool and pinball and, like, dance on the dance floor. I didn't have that. It was like, oh, for a while you had to sit at your table. You couldn't talk
Yeah.
to other people. You could only be outside. Even in the wintertime, it's like freezing outside in Seattle, and it's like, ooh, yeah, you can have a beer, but you have to sit outside in the 40-degree temps. I hope you brought your coat and find a spot in front of the fire pit. But I never really had a normal experience, which I think worked to my advantage,
Mm-hmm.
because then it never got too, my relationship with alcohol was never too terrible. It was not great. It certainly could have been a lot worse, though.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right. And so then what happened?
Well, that was 2020, 2021, and I was using alcohol as a way to decrease my social anxiety. I have always been a chronically anxious person from the age of like 4 or 5 to now almost 25. So 20 years of anxiety, both socially and internally. And I found that if I had a drink, I felt less anxious. I was more comfortable having a conversation with anyone, especially someone I hadn't met before. It kind of took
Mm-hmm.
the edge off just a little bit, allowed me to be more friendly, more bubbly. I was not constantly being aware of my surroundings and wondering what other people are thinking of me, started to take the edge off. And also, all of the social activities I was doing at that point revolved around drinking. It was never just, hey, let's have a group of friends over and do a little craft night. It was, oh, let's do a craft and wine night, or we're going to go
Mm-hmm.
tailgate and watch the football game, or we're going to do a charcuterie board and make cocktails. Like, it always
Mm-hmm.
just had to be present, but that was so unnecessary. Why can't we just watch a football game without beer? Why can't we have a craft night without a bottle of wine? Why does it always have to be? Are we using these activities as an excuse just to drink? But everything I was
Mm-hmm.
doing with my friend group revolved around that. And I didn't go sober until Christmas of 2022. So this December will be 2 years for me. And that was
Oh,
about,
congratulations.
thank you. That was about a year after I moved to Dallas. So I moved to Dallas. I was still keeping up with the party lifestyle and going out. At that point, I started working in the music industry, which is very heavily saturated by alcohol, along with many other substances. And there was a lot of pressure in the work environment to drink, especially because the majority of my job is spent in the green room backstage with a musician. They are taking shots of who knows what, and they're always going out to celebrate afterwards. And it was almost like I felt like I had to partake, and if I didn't partake, they wouldn't think I was capable or qualified to have the job, which is exactly the opposite. I'm actually more qualified and more capable because I'm aware of my surroundings. I'm not inebriated. But we'll dive more into that. But I had contemplated sobriety for about a year when I first moved to Dallas, but the word sobriety felt so intense. I had never heard of sober curious or sober-ish or having a healthier relationship with alcohol. For me, it was all or nothing. And I
So
got really
tell me what, in thinking about this interview, I mean, I love the fact that you are a younger person, but full-fledged adult who has made this decision for yourself. Because so often I think the reputation of, the alcoholic, right,
Mhm.
is the old man holding a bottle in a brown paper bag living under a bridge.
Yep.
And I think that even the word sobriety is generally mentally attached to somebody who has gradually lost everything
Yep.
and has had to rebuild.
Yep.
And so were some of those things playing in your head when you thought of that word, or
Absolutely. It felt like an all or nothing. I did have that picture, and I thought, well, if I stop drinking, does that make me sober? Do I have to stay sober? Do I stop drinking for a month? Do I stop drinking for the rest of my life? Just because I'm sober doesn't mean I was an alcoholic. And that is society's first assumption that, oh, if you don't drink, you must have had a problem. I never had a
or that
problem.
you're pregnant?
Yeah, oh yeah. Oh my gosh. I'm like, no, come on. There's so many reasons why you could choose to not drink, and I don't have to explain that to anybody. It could be for physical health, mental health. You could be of a faith that allows or prohibits you from drinking. Um, Alcohol's really expensive. I was spending so much money going out 2, 3, 4 times a week. And that was even when we could barely go out. Like, and going out looked so differently, and all the expenses that come with that, the Ubers, the ordering DoorDash, the club entry fees. Of course, I gotta have a cute little going out outfit, like all of these things. I mean, I still do that, but
Of course, of course.
it just it financially was a lot, and there's so many dozens of other reasons. And I don't have to explain that to anybody, but society just assumes, oh, you must have had a problem or you're pregnant, which was neither of those were the case. I just wanted to make a healthier decision for myself.
Did you, like, I'm just putting myself in your shoes, and at your age, I am so impressed because healthier decisions just never occurred to me. Like, how did you kind of put that together? I mean, I know the dialogue is different in your generation, which I can't wait till you guys are running the world. But tell me a little bit about, like, how did that even enter your psyche? Like, what did that look like to you?
I never fully hit the stereotypical rock bottom. But
Mhm.
I did have a breaking point in Christmas or during Christmas of 2022. Like I said, have always been a very anxious person, have dealt with a panic attack disorder for 20 plus years now. And I had gone home to Seattle pretty much for the first time since I had moved to Dallas a year earlier. And the holidays are a hard time for a lot of people with
They're
divorced
tricky.
parents, being back in my hometown for the first time in a while. It's very messy, very complicated, and sets me in a permanent state of fight or flight. So my anxiety is already very, very high, and I ended up having the worst panic attack I had ever had in my entire
Mhm.
life. And I just realized I need to be on medication to help with my anxiety, and I cannot keep feeling this way. It was so severe to the point where I didn't even think that I could fly home because I was just paralyzed with anxiety. And for those listening at home who deal with anxiety, you can't even fully explain it, but it's just
It's a
this like
terrible thing.
it's
Yes.
suffocating. And so I flew back to Dallas. Still to this day, don't know how I made it back. Like I literally blacked out, not on alcohol, but just on like the anxiety. And the airport around Christmas time, that makes a non-anxious person anxious. But
It's traumatic enough, right?
yes, so I came back to Dallas. I booked an appointment with my primary care doctor, and I said, I really am I'm ready to be back on medication. I was on medication earlier as a teenager, and I knew that that was what I needed to do for my mental health. And he gave me a prescription of medication that has now totally saved my life and has made me be able to be a functioning human being, contributing to
Good for you.
society, having a
Good for you.
job. Thank you. But he said, Madison, you cannot drink on this medication. And that's true with many medications, mental health, physical health, even over the counter medications. And I know a lot of people in my friend group who take similar prescriptions and still drink on it. And he sat me down. This is like between Christmas and New Year's. And I remember the conversation so vividly. And he really warned me. And that was the first time it really clicked for me. He said, well, you're like you had mentioned before, you're already a lightweight. So one drink kind of feels like four drinks for you. You have a low tolerance to alcohol. When you take this medication, it will essentially double that for you. So now one drink could feel anywhere but like between 4 to 8 drinks for the normal person. And I thought, that sounds terrible. Like that's not even if I was having a really gorgeous cocktail at a fancy rooftop bar, if that's going to feel like 8 drinks, I'm that sounds miserable. And I just thought, okay, so I'm done drinking. And he was like, okay, well, like you still can drink, you can do that, but you really, really need to be careful. And I said, I think it would be best for me if I quit completely. And from that day forward, I stopped and I have not had a single drink of alcohol since. This December will be 2 years. I still take medication for my anxiety and am working towards hopefully in 2025 lowering my dosage and tapering me off of that. But people ask me constantly, do you think you'll be sober forever? Or do you think you'll ever go back to drinking? And the answer is, I don't know. I don't want to say I'm never going to drink again and anyone who drinks is awful and blah blah blah. No, that's not the case. I just have found so much more joy and positivity and have grown so much in all aspects of my life since cutting out drinking. I don't feel the need to go back to that. But who's to say that 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, I may want to go back to that? I will have the tools necessary to be able to have that healthy relationship and to do that in moderation.
Yeah. Wow. I love that story. There's so much about that it's just really awe-inspiring. I mean, people who seek mental health help are my heroes. And I too suffer from anxiety and I've suffered from depression and those medications and those doctors have helped me to get where I am today.
Mhm.
Um, but also the fact that you listen to your doctor,
Mhm.
because I think that many people don't
Yeah, it's
and then
not.
wonder why it's not working.
Yes, exactly. And it's not something to take lightly. They are giving you that medical advice for a reason. And I don't know about you, but like I would, if it's gonna make me feel terrible and probably throw up or mess with my stomach or worsen my hangover, why would I willingly choose that? For what? To have a little bit of extra liquid courage? No. I find that courage and that confidence from within. I don't need to find that from a shot of
Something.
mango pineapple svedka or
Yeah.
Malibu or whatever it was that I was drinking at that time. Oh, that like nauseates me thinking about that. But why would I willingly choose that?
Okay, but so now you're still working in the music industry and
Hmm.
you're still in those green rooms and you're still amongst that lifestyle. Like, what has that been like?
It's It's interesting. When I work with someone for the first time, I never blatantly say, "Hey, I'm sober." But if they've connected with me on social media, they've probably seen me talk about it, which definitely helps some. But there are still situations where, maybe only one person in a room of 30 has connected with me ahead of time. I usually just say, "No, thanks, I'm good," or "Oh, no, that's okay," or "Oh, I've got my water, like, I'm good." And about half the time, people are like, "Okay, cool, no worries, like, let me know if you change your mind," and that's fine. Sometimes, if there's a lot of peer pressure, as particularly it's always with shots. I don't know why, like, who came up with the idea that shots need to be this, like, group activity, but they'll say, "Oh,
Mhm.
Madison, come take a shot with us. Come take a shot with us." Like, about to go on stage, got the whole crew and everybody's hyped up. And I'll say, "Oh, I'm okay, but you guys take your shots. I'll take a photo of you taking your shots." And then they usually back off. But every once in a while, there will be people that pry a little bit further, like, "Oh, really? Like, come on, don't be lame. Like, everybody's taking one." And then that's when I say, "Actually, I don't drink." And if at that point they pry any further, then I probably need to consider if I even want to have a professional working relationship with someone.
Mhm. You know what we need to do? We
Hmm.
need to start a company that has mocktail in those mini bottles
Shooters, yes.
so that we can pull one out of our purse in that moment and be like, "Yep, I'm in with you," and pour
Yes.
our own
I
mocktail.
would love that. That is genius. And something that like tastes good too. Like,
Yes.
or maybe it has, I don't know, like adaptogens or CBD or like some, I don't know, a
Yes.
little bit of caffeine, something good.
Yes. Yes, I'm in for that. Totally. And I also need to create like a mini of a champagne so that when you go to these champagne toasts, you have something to pull out that's delicious and not just apple cider. Like,
Yes,
I'm all for the apple cider, but at least just give me something grown up,
yes. Martinelli's has had a special place in my heart. I drank that when I was 6 years old
right?
at the family Christmases, but there's a brand, I don't know if you've tried it, called Liars, and
No.
they have an alcohol-free prosecco in a large glass bottle, and then they have it in individual cans. I don't know if they do the small glass bottle, which would be really cool for, like, special occasions, because then you can still pop the top and whatnot, but it actually, in my opinion, tastes better than regular champagne or prosecco. It still is bubbly. It doesn't give me heartburn like champagne used to give me really bad heartburn. So Liars, it's Lyres. They're the best. I love them.
Cool. I'll check that out. I'll
Yes.
tell you one that I've tasted is from a company called Geisen,
Huh.
Geisen, and they're
Okay.
out of Australia, but they distribute here, and they make a champagne that, honest to goodness, tastes just like champagne
Wow.
without the alcohol. It is
I love
so
that.
delicious.
I
It
will
is so
have to I'll
delicious.
have to check that out. That sounds great.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so have you shared at all in your professional network that you don't drink? Besides obviously your social media, but I mean, is that a conversation that you have had out loud with people?
Yes, it definitely is a conversation I have, but I kind of choose to have that sparingly. Of course, I'm always aware that that may alter someone's opinion of me, even though it shouldn't, but unfortunately it has before. There's been times where if someone says, like, I'll order a mocktail off a menu and someone will say, "Oh, I'll have what she's having." And they're like, "Oh, does that have I don't know, is that Grey Goose in there?" And then I'm like, "Oh, actually, no, it's a mocktail." And they're like, "Oh, well, I don't want that. Like, give me something with the vodka or tequila or whatever."
Mhm, mhm.
So then I'll usually say, "Yeah, actually, I've been sober," or they may, see me like bring a canned mocktail to an event and ask me about it. I like to use those conversations as a way to educate people, and for the most part, the response has been overwhelmingly positive. And a lot of people have said, "Oh, that makes me so happy to know that you aren't drinking tonight, because then I don't feel like I have to drink because everybody else is drinking either." Even if they aren't a sober person, if they're purely just not wanting to drink that night, if they want to drive home safely, which we all should be doing. But yeah, it's kind of it's an interesting conversation to have. Music specifically, that if I am having that conversation, I want to make sure I'm having that with someone when they are sober, because it's harder for them to grasp that when they are inebriated, because they just want to party and have fun.
For sure.
And like my podcast title and everything in my brand, you can still have a fun and adventurous life without alcohol. I'm
So tell me
still
about that. Tell me
yeah,
about
I'm
the sober girls gone wild and your brand and all that.
yes. Well, I had wanted to start a podcast for a long time. I host a podcast for my day job. I am the creative director of arts, music, and culture online publication or magazine. And so I got really good at the hosting side of things and very comfortable with that and interviewing people. And I thought, wow, I really want to do this, but ask the questions that I want to ask and talk about the things that I want to talk about. And people have always told me that I live a really adventurous life, and they always say, "Oh, your life looks so cool." And if they keep in touch with me on social media, I'm always traveling for work. I'm photographing tons of musicians. I love getting tattooed. Like I know you can't tell, but I have like two full sleeves and a leg sleeve and my stomach, and like
Let's
I'm
see.
covered
Show
in
us.
tattoos.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
But I loved just I've always been an adventure seeker, especially after the pandemic. And none of the adventure that I pursued has been surrounding alcohol. And I've done so much more with my life, personally and professionally, when I stopped drinking, that I thought there's something there that I can tell people about. So I came up with this idea for Sober Girls Gone Wild, because I want everyone to know I am still the life of the party. I will still go out and dance till 2 o'clock in the morning. I will get up on the bar top. I will do all of the things I used to do, but I am in control of myself and my
Mhm.
surroundings. I wake up the next day and I don't feel terrible, and I remember everything that happened. And I started this podcast just recently. We launched at the end of July, and we're about 5 to 6 episodes in, and I have a whole bunch more coming this fall. But just helping people to know how to have a fun and adventurous life without leaning on alcohol for support, how to find courage from within instead of relying on liquid courage, and then navigating sobriety through different social situations, such as dating. That's been a really popular topic, or the overlap between sobriety and entrepreneurship, sobriety and creativity. We talk a little bit about the physical aspect, sobriety and fitness, sobriety and spirituality is an episode I'm recording in a couple of weeks, so I'm very, very excited about that. But I like to tell stories of the crazy things I've gotten into, and the cool people I've met and the places I've traveled and all the fun I've had, all while being completely sober.
I absolutely love that because I think that that is a thing that a lot of people think that if they stop drinking, then is their life going to be over as they know it?
Mine got way more fun, and I excelled phenomenally in my career. I was able to make true lifelong friends, figured out dating as a sober person. That's a whole, like, I could talk about that for a month
Mhm.
on end, but the growth that happened was astronomical.
Yeah. Well, one of the main reasons that we wanted to have you on this one is because we definitely focus on the professionals and the fact that in our social life, we have a choice where we can go,
Mhm.
right? We can go to a party or not go to a party. We can go to a bar or not go to a bar. But oftentimes in a work environment, like when there is a gathering, a happy hour, a sales meeting, a conference, whatever it is, in your case, the green rooms, like we have to be there and there is alcohol there
Yep.
and it can cause these frictions. But professional means so many different things. It's not just the person wearing the suit in the office. It's not just the doctor or the lawyer. It's people like you
Yeah.
who are doing your job and are surrounded by people drinking
Mhm.
and having to navigate that. So what would you say to the person in your shoes who is listening and is saying, well, that's great for you, Madison, but I don't know how I can do this.
My biggest piece of advice is to just try it. You don't have to completely cut out alcohol forever. This isn't okay, I'm quitting cold turkey and I'm never going to go back to it again. But try attending your next work happy hour, or your next conference or sales meeting, and maybe bring your own beverage or order a mocktail off the menu if you're out at a restaurant or a bar. Just try it. You'll find that there's less stigma surrounding it than you think. Sometimes people might not even notice. Once you're able to practice that and get over that initial fear, you're going to start to develop some confidence from within to have that conversation when it does come up. And you're unashamed to say, I'm not drinking today, or oh, I'm okay for now, but like maybe another time, or I'm 6 months sober and I cut it out for my physical and my mental health, and here's the amazing results I've had. Or in my case, I won't take a shot, but I'll take a photo of you taking a shot. As you practice that, the more you practice it, the more comfortable you'll become. And you may cut it out for one happy hour and then decide at the next one, actually, I would like to partake and I would like to have a glass of wine instead of 5 glasses of wine or 10 glasses of wine or whatever. It's all about finding what works for you. But I used to work in social media marketing. I still do a little bit of social media related stuff. And I would always tell the clients I worked with, a lot of social media is throwing wet spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks. And that is also the same for your sobriety journey. A lot of it is throwing the wet spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks. You have to find what works for you. I can't say, here's the one size fits all formula. Here's exactly what you say and exactly what you order, and you'll never have problems or feel anxiety ever again. If that was the case, we would not be having this conversation today. But there's no harm in trying. And you may find, actually, I think you will be very pleasantly surprised that it's less difficult than you think. So try it, give it a shot. If it feels really uncomfortable and it's keeping you up at night and you are very anxious about it, let's come up with a different approach. Maybe we'll say something different. Maybe we will I don't know, confide in a trusted higher up, or maybe there's somebody on HR that you can talk to help you navigate those situations. If you're working at a company where there is too much pressure surrounding that, and your coworkers, your higher ups, your clients, your boss, whoever is putting too much pressure on you to participate, and it feels like your job may be in jeopardy or your career is centered around that, it may be time to do some reevaluating if that is the correct spot for you.
Absolutely. Gosh, every bit of that is so, so golden. We actually have some of our members who are drinkers, but they specifically choose not to drink at the professional events
Yep.
because they want to show up as their best selves.
Yep.
And so it's all over the spectrum, and it really doesn't matter. What we're about is just normalizing sober choices and just opening the conversation so that it's not so odd or different or
Yep.
something's wrong or all the things, and really be empowered.
Yes.
Be
Absolutely.
empowered and have fun.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. That makes me think of this story that I feel like would really resonate. So this was back in my more of my corporate days, which I didn't talk about very much, but I do have a corporate background, and so I am used to the conferences and the sales meetings and the why are we having a bottle of wine at noon on a Monday? Why is that necessary? But when I had got the job that brought me to Dallas in the first place, I was working for a social media marketing agency. And before I fully moved and packed up everything and sold everything and moved 2,000 miles away from home, I had flown to Dallas for a couple of weeks in November of 2021 to work in person with the team and to try it out to see if it was a good fit before they gave me my official job offer. Well, it was a good fit. they gave me my official job offer. And to celebrate, rather than just having a nice dinner, we went out to one of the biggest clubs in Dallas. And my boss at the time got a booth and a table with bottle service. And every person that worked at the company, plus all of their significant others and a few other friends, were all there to celebrate that I got this new job and I was moving halfway across the country to work for this company. And because it was a startup and it was a really big deal. But earlier that day, when we had the meeting where I signed my offer letter and we talked about pay and everything, I had asked about payment or some sort of stipend to help me with my cross country move because I was leaving everything behind. And at the time, I was um, freshly 22, so I did not have a huge savings account. I had
Right.
to sell everything and start over. I slept on an air mattress for like the first 2 months that I lived here because I couldn't afford to get the furniture I needed. And my boss had said, we don't have we unfortunately don't have any money in the budget to help you with your move. And I was so hungry and ready for this job and ready to enter the next era of my career that I was okay with that. And I said, okay, that like I will accept that because I want to be here and I want to work with you. But then we get bottle service at this club, and I look at the receipt at the end of the night because maybe I was being a little nosy, but also I was the only one who was not like totally intoxicated and could like grab
Mm.
the check from the waitress and like make sure to thank her and make okay, is everybody getting in an Uber? Like, what are we doing? And I remember looking at that and thinking, I cannot believe that the man I'm moving halfway across the country to come and work for spent that much money on booze when they refused to help me with any aspect of my move.
Mhm.
Because that amount of money would have been
Would have
life changing.
helped. Yeah.
It would have been life changing. It was astronomical. And for me to have 2 glasses of champagne out of the close to $3,500 he spent that night. And yes, it was to celebrate me getting the job and, oh, Madison, and we're so excited to have you. But that sinking feeling in my stomach, I will never forget that. And thinking, so is a night out worth more than helping your new employee? I sacrificed so much for that company. I took a $40,000 pay cut to work for this company and I moved out of my own pocket. Um, I no
Yeah.
longer work for them. We went our separate ways. Everything happens for a reason, but I feel like I almost knew from the beginning that that party lifestyle was more important than my well-being as an employee. They couldn't give me health insurance, but we could go and spend $200 on a company lunch with cocktails at noon on a Monday.
Yeah.
The math ain't math.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're right. I mean, at a certain point, I think once we start the cascade of decisions to care for ourselves differently, it brings into question other things as well.
Yep.
And that doesn't mean that everybody who gets sober quits their job.
Right.
It simply means that things come up that we get to examine and look at differently.
Yep.
Yeah. Madison, I am just so thrilled that you spent this time with us and really just dropped gold for everybody, especially thinking about, what it might be like and for a younger adult and the situations that we find ourselves in. So thank you. Thank you so, so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. This was a absolutely wonderful conversation. I think you and the entire team are doing such amazing work, and I wish that I had been connected with y'all a few years earlier. I think it would have worked wonders on my sobriety journey, and I would have loved to have those resources. But the point is, we're connected now, and there's so many lives that are being transformed from the work that you're doing. So I thank
Thank
you
you.
and I applaud you for that. That's so awesome.
Thanks. And thanks for joining us today. Remember, no one ever regrets not drinking the morning after. So keep making choices that brighten your world and the world around you.